Kia ora and welcome to Wahine, a podcast celebrating wahine in business who are carving their own path with intention, courage and vision. This is Wahine Legacy Leadership. O tēnā koutou katoa, welcome to Wahine. Today I am joined by Patina Timon, who is the founder of Complete Business Solutions based in Australia. Her business is proudly certified by Supply Nation as a 100% Indigenous owned, controlled and managed company. I'll let Patina share more about her work that her and her team do very shortly. Patina, it's such a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today and exploring your journey in business, your leadership, and the legacy that you're creating through your work. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge your country, your people, and your whakapapa. To honour the traditional owners and custodians of the land and the sea, and to pay respects to elders of past, present, and those emerging. I also want to acknowledge the communities, the ancestors, and the lived experience that you bring with you and that has shaped who you are and how you lead. Because there's one thing that we know here at Wahine, and that is we all arrive in the world surrounded by community, and that community follows us into business, and we carry the stories of our families with us at all times through all the responsibilities we hold in business and outside of our business. So a very warm welcome to you. Welcome to Wahine, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So to get us started, I always like to hand over to my guests to introduce themselves, who they are, where they whakapapa, or where they come from. That brings us to having this conversation today.
Thank you, Sandra. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity, Sandra, to be part of your amazing podcast. My name is Patina Timon. I'm a proud Aboriginal woman from Australia. I was born in Tasmania, but unfortunately I was taken away at just 8 months old. And so I have travelled extensively throughout the east coast of Australia, literally from the very bottom of Tasmania to the very top of Queensland. And I think probably the place I would call home more than anything else would either be in a remote community in Cape York or at the Gold Coast.
Beautiful. That's a story that we could dive into, right? Being removed at 8 months old. From what I gather, very much, a part of the Aboriginal story that's being uncovered wouldn't be the right word at the moment, but how would you describe that journey?
It's been a very challenging journey, Sandra, and the reason I say that is that my family didn't even tell me I was Aboriginal until I was 35 years old. Wow. And that was because of how it came to be through rape. So long story short, in Tasmania, majority of the Aboriginal people look like me. They're fair skin. They have blonde hair, blue eyes. So in other parts of Australia, most Aboriginal people have dark skin, brown hair, brown eyes. And my grandmother's mother was pitch black. But when you look at my grandmother, she is milky white, big blue eyes, very curly blonde hair, but the really broad Aboriginal nose. So when she was going to school, she was bullied and harassed by the teachers and told that she's not Aboriginal. And so she maintained her silence in that space for a very long time, and then that fed through the rest of the generations that don't own up to being Aboriginal, because of the bullying and the harassment, the racism, the shame, etc. And the whole thing of me being taken away from Tasmania at 8 months of age was actually that my father was killed in a car accident when my mum was 5 months pregnant with me. And so my mother left Tasmania to move across to Victoria and move on to her life and find a new partner. And from there we experienced many hardships and childhood abuse and things like that. So, which is typical for Aboriginal people in a lot of communities. However, in my situation, it wasn't as a result of being Aboriginal because nobody knew. It was a result of the unfortunate partners my mum chose over the following years that remained. So, I think she's on marriage number 6 at the moment, and it's been a terrible journey of hardships, but through sharing my story and my experiences and just being open and transparent, I've been able to help many other women who have suffered childhood trauma, domestic family violence, sexual abuse and rape, etc. And often they're wanting to do business, but they don't know how to get past the personal traumas to be able to move forward with progressing in business. And so that's usually the holistic approach that I take with the women that I support.
Well, given, your upbringing, how did that lead to you starting your own business? What was the inspiration for you to start your own business? And the question that B below that is, how long ago was that?
Yeah. So because of the men that were involved in my mother's life who were physically and sexually abusing my sister and I left home at the age of 15. Well, my mother actually abandoned me at the age of 15, but at that time she moved away into a different town. She told me I had to fend for myself, go out, get a job, pay for my own living, etc. So at that time, I was in year 10 at high school, and I was doing reasonably well. I was doing secretarial studies and I was acing it. And my mother moved states, and in Australia that distance is about probably 1900 kilometres away from me. So I was in Mackay in Queensland and she moved away to New South Wales. And so I ended up boarding with a family who I didn't know, and I had to go and get a job and pay for myself. And then I tried to go at the end of that year, when I finished my school studies, I tried to move to New South Wales to live with my mum, and the circumstances were pretty terrible and pretty toxic. So when I was 16, I moved out of home, and again I had to hold down 2 jobs at that instance. I was riding my push bike to a service station to pump fuel in the early hours of the morning, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, then going off to do TAFE studies during the day full time. I was doing secretarial studies and I was really good at that. And in the evenings I would go and work in motels and restaurants. And I ended up just finding my way through, and my first boyfriend was the milkman, and within a short time we ended up living together due to my personal circumstances of being out of home on my own. And we later got married, had a child, and it was during the pregnancy that he actually said to me, and now he was a good man, he didn't hurt me, he didn't swear at me, he didn't do anything, but because of my toxic, volatile upbringing, I didn't know how to live with that. I didn't know how to cope. I was so used to volatile, toxic relationships in the home that when I was placed in a loving, normal environment, I didn't know how to cope with the quiet. I didn't know how to cope with the peace. And there are many of your listeners who would be in a domestic family violence environment, or would have been, who probably relate to that. And statistics show that it takes women 7 times to finally walk away from DFE situations. But this husband, he was a gentle soul, but I found that quite boring. And it was during that marriage that he said to me, when you're pregnant, I'm not going to pay for anything for the baby. So you have to go and earn extra money to pay for whatever the baby needs, furniture and clothes, etc. And so I started a graphic design home-based business, and thought I was amazing at it. I was using Microsoft Publisher and Microsoft Word to do invitations and basic stuff. And I thought I was pretty cool with it. And then because I was only age 24 at this time, and I went into a Xerox photocopy center and said, can you give me some prices to do, bulk copies of printing and things like that, a couple of hundred prints, etc., for my clients. And the man contacted me a couple of days later, and he said, oh, I've got a job opening for a graphic designer. Do you want it? And the wage he was offering was really, really crappy. And I said, look, no, I'm not going to come and work for you, but I'll give you a counter offer. I'll pay you $100 a week to sit in your graphic design studio, use your equipment, your client database, and I'll take any of the proceeds for graphic design work, and any printing requirements, that goes to you, and that's your income. He agreed, and I got to sit with a graphic designer for 2 days. And Sandra, I panicked. I absolutely panicked, because I looked at what this graphic designer was doing, and she was using commercial grade programs like PageMaker and Quark Express and Corel Draw. I'd never even heard of those things, let alone use them. And within a couple of months, I'd actually lost all of his clients. Because I was useless, I had no idea what to do. So I self-taught myself graphic design on a commercial level. And within 6 months, I'd employed another person. I outgrew that tiny little space into a commercial studio, graphic design studio, which was the only one between Newcastle and Brisbane. And it was officially opened by the mayor and things like that. So that was my very first business back when I was 24. And I also founded my first women's empowerment group at the age of 24.
Wow. Congratulations. And that's quite a ballsy move, to go back to him at that young age and say to them, no, that's not for me, but how about this?
Yeah, and back then I had some cocky confidence that, really bit me in the butt, because I didn't have the skills. But I'm a very determined and tenacious person, and, going through the life hardships that I've endured has really made me create that self-determination piece. And nobody else is going to do it for me. Nobody else is there to support me. I have to do things myself.
How is that very first experience of being in business, and there were some hard lessons from what I hear, led to what you do today?
Yeah, so I think the hard lesson initially from that particular business was I got involved with, after I'd left my husband, I got involved with somebody else, and that was back in the DFE space. So that was familiar for me, but also very unstable for myself and my mental health, which then impacted my business. And I ended up having a mental health breakdown. And my business had been built on me. And so my staff didn't know how to effectively operate the business without me at the helm, because I'd never empowered them to do so. I just empowered them to be the the people turning up to work each day to earn a paycheck and just do the graphic design work. I was doing all the stakeholder and client engagement and things. So the business fell apart. I declared bankruptcy and, lost that relationship. And that was when I had my first miscarriage, and decided then to relocate again from a regional town in New South Wales called Coffs Harbour to where I knew family and friends, and I was quite well established in the community with that women's empowerment group, etc. And I moved to Sydney where I didn't know anybody, and had to start all over again. And I had a 3-year-old kid in tow, and giddy up, we just had to make it work. And I had to put it out there to the universe to find a job in the design and print industry that would pay me a decent salary as a single mom and give me a company car and give me commissions and bonuses. And I set the intention, and I achieved it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So now you're established in a, great job in Sydney. When did you start Complete Business Solutions?
Yeah, so in Sydney, I actually, one of my legacies and claim to fame is I conceptualized, custom built and launched the legacy of the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games, which 17 years on is still going, which is pretty cool. And just after I did that, I had a car accident, and I ended up having major spine problems. So I was off work for a month, and ended up going broke. And again, with a single mom with a kid. And at the time, the insurance claims and things weren't what they are today. And so I came out of it with next to no money, but permanent lower spine damage. And my daughter was having some challenges at school at that time because I had some, very intense work commitments, and she was about to start high school. And so I said, well, I need to spend more quality time with my daughter to be the role model that she needs as a single mum. And we didn't have any involvement with family or her father. So I relocated to the Gold Coast where my sister was, and I had some other family and friends there, or long-term friends who I call my family. And so I started all over again. But at that time, just before I left Sydney, I established yet another business networking group and launched the Games Legacy. And then I was in a situation where I was feeling really lost, and I had no direction. I'd achieved greatness on that level, and then it's like, what next? I need more, and I didn't know what to do next. And so, without having any family to connect with or to give me guidance and direction, I rang a 1-300 clairvoyant, and just put it out there. And she said to me on the phone that I was going to be on a stage talking in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, or training people for a living, imparting my skills and knowledge. And I just laughed. And I said, I don't have any qualifications. I'm not a keynote speaker, da-da-da-da-da. And then I thought to myself, after ending the call and feeling even more confused, I rang this lady for guidance and direction. She's given it to me. I'm just going to trust it and go with it. And so I moved to the Gold Coast with my daughter, who was at the time 7, I think. And I just started the process of undertaking, education and training. And I now possess 14 qualifications. I got into the training industry and found my purpose was, being in front of people and imparting lived experience as well as formal qualifications and training. And, having that real practical, engaging aspect to the way I do things. So that was really cool. I did that for quite some time, and started my training and consultancy business. Found my my next husband, and we started a training consultancy business together. And unfortunately, we got into business with the wrong person without doing our due diligence. And that went south really quickly. We got into $700,000 of debt across 23 creditors, thinking and believing that we could really make this work with this person. And then we found out that this person was actually the devil in disguise, and that he had gone bankrupt himself for $150 million. So, we ended up in a really bad predicament with him, and we ended up losing everything. And that caused my husband to have mental health breakdowns, and me being the strong, determined woman that I am, I had to put on my boy pants and just be the strong person for both of us. And I started working remotely in Aboriginal communities, which were paying me, the government was paying me a very high weekly amount to do that. And I managed to trade us through the debt that we had, so we didn't have to go bankrupt. And I, at the same time, caring for my husband, who wasn't able to work for a couple of years. And we decided to relocate to Cairns in far north Queensland, which was closer to remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, because I really felt at home in that space. And I felt, even though I'm not connected to my own mob due to my family issues, I felt very connected to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Cape York and Gulf Savannah, and Torres Strait. So we moved to Cairns, and I said to my husband, you have to get back to work. You're driving me insane with being at home all the time. If you don't get your backside into gear and get your job, then I'll divorce you, because I'm not carrying this for the rest of your life. And so watching him spiral even further when he's an extremely intelligent man was a real challenge for me. And so we decided to start the business, Complete Business Solutions, because we have complementary skill sets. And it started out as grant writing, and then it just progressed into doing a diverse scope of work. And I was able to find a little office that was only $500 a week, for 90 square meters. And I managed to get 2 desks and a Xerox photocopy machine. And he said, but we've got no clients, and blah, blah, blah. I'll find it. Don't worry. I've set the intention. I'm the queen of manifestation. It'll work. And within 8 months, we had outgrown that business. Took on 400 square meter office, and then got greedy and took on an 800 square meter office to establish a business hub where we provided co-working and private office hire and training room hire, and for Indigenous peoples and not-for-profit groups and government, etc. And that was the only self-funded hub in Queensland for 6 years. So, and that ran alongside Complete Business Solutions. So Complete Business Solutions has just grown astronomically despite, going through hardships of COVID, which meant no visitation to the hub for 3 years. And the hub, it was supposed to self-generate income to pay the $250,000 a year rent. But when COVID happened, we had no visitation and subsequently no rental income, but our landlord was a monster, and so we still had to pay the rent, which just meant that my husband and I had to do a lot of extra hours to do a lot of extra consultancy work and pay the bills, and managed to make it. And so we did that. And during that time, I actually suffered major spine surgery and COVID and a couple of legal cases. And then we started to realize that the marriage was suffering as a result of all the complications within owning the business and having all these additional external stresses and factors like, legal situations and major health problems and being in a small town that's not as accepting or welcoming of business growth specialization and compliance consultancy and things. And so all those things just played havoc on the marriage. And it's very hard when you work together and live together 24/7 to separate business and personal, which is the thing I coach a lot of couples on now because I became an expert on it. And yeah, the marriage broke 2 years ago, and I relocated to Southeast Queensland to expand our company down here. And through all of that, I am really proud to say that there's been a lot of hardships between my ex-husband and I finding our feet in the new relationship that we have. But we are best friends and we are business partners still. And we have founded other businesses. So I have owned Australian Women in Business for just over 3 years. And that's 3,500 members Australia-wide. There's a social enterprise where it's a group on Facebook, and we provide free access to resources, mentoring, support, connectivity and collaboration. And so I founded that business and a couple of others, which I'm about to launch a business in New Zealand in April, which is pretty cool. We'll be heading across there. But my ex-husband and I, because we've been able to both agree that we want to still work the business. We still love the business. We love what we do with our clients and the impacts that we make. Neither of us want to get out of the business. And so we've made a really consolidated effort to get along to the point where we even double date. So
that's hilarious.
It's hilarious. My new fiance, he and my ex-husband will go and move house together or go and drive cars together, and it's an interesting dynamic. But we wanted to make sure that our clients weren't impacted and that our personal well-being and professional well-being wasn't impacted by the fact that our marriage didn't work, but we still have complementary skill sets. We still have the common goal of educating, enabling, empowering our clients to drive economic outcomes, social and mental well-being outcomes. And so, our business has just grown and grown and grown, and we're doing amazing things. We've now got 3 offices in Queensland, and we're looking at setting one up in Melbourne. I'm setting up a business, as I said, over in New Zealand in April. It's just grown from strength to strength. But you need to set the intention, and you need to believe in it and manifest it into your world. And that's what I do.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about each of those businesses, because now I'm curious. So Complete Business Solutions, what is the core services, the core consulting services that you provide within that business? And are you mainly working with Aboriginal communities or small businesses, or government agencies? What does that business do?
Yeah, so Complete Business Solutions is around about $1 million a year. 80% of our revenue is generated by government contracts. The government refer clients to us or contract us to provide services to about 45% of our end client base are Indigenous people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, typically living in regional, rural and remote areas. And so I travel usually every week or every 2 weeks to amazing locations, remote villages of 200 people to go and help, a startup Indigenous business, or we go into regional areas and do the work there. And, the work is, so we do the work with our Indigenous, we've got about 80% of our clients are women, and 45% of our total client base are Indigenous. We deliver between 50 and 80 government contracts every year, and
Wow.
I serve on 2 government boards. But the services can be coaching, mentoring, small business advisory services. We do grant and tender writing. We do procurement, readiness and support, so developing, getting a business ready to win contracts with tier ones and mines and government. We do marketing and website development. We do compliance consultancy and accreditation, whether it's disability, aged care, veteran affairs, or HSEQ, which is construction, civil and trades. We do youth services. So we actually do all the policies, procedures, compliance documentation for a business to become a service provider and be accredited and be compliant. We also have another business which is a software system that is a CRM and compliance software to help clients manage their compliance and CRM instead of paper-based system. And so that's typically what Complete Business Solutions does. And that work we do across Australia and Papua New Guinea. And the New Zealand business will be an extension of Complete Business Solutions. So it's a one-stop shop, Sandra, for all things business, except we don't do tax and we don't do legal.
Right.
So, yeah. And then Australian Women in Business is primarily a social enterprise, providing the mentoring, support, connection, collaboration for women via the Facebook group, and then virtual support. And it's across all of those areas as well. So I'm actually about to launch some new programs within Australian Women in Business, and that will include our members being able to access mentors across different industry specializations. So it's a pretty cool service. I have Business Growth Specialist Australia, and that's where typically a fractional role. So a lot of business owners are hands-on operators, and they grow a business, but then they reach its capacity, and because they're still hands-on, they don't know how to grow the business. They'll pay a marketing consultant, but then there's so many other, or a business coach, but then the business coach will say, you need to fix your website, you need a capability statement, you need to write a tender to win contracts, or you need to update your policies and procedures, or you need to do HR processes. And then what happens is the business owner is overwhelmed because they have to go out to market and hire a web developer. They have to go and get a graphic designer to do the brand and marketing updates, or they have to go to a consultant to do policies and procedures, or a HR specialist to do HR process. And so the budget expenses for each of those different service providers, and spreading that business owner's mind too thin when they're already at capacity in their business, we sort of identified the opportunity where we go into the client's business, and yes, I coach them or advise them on, here's the changes you make, but here my team and I will actually do all of this work for you. So we become the accountability and the implementation partner. So one of our clients at the moment, it's a parent company with 3 trading entities underneath it. 2 of the entities are in the manufacturing and processing industries, and the other is in motorized wheelchairs. And so they're at capacity. They can't grow. They want to grow, but they can't grow. And they've been paying a marketing consultant for 6 months at $7,000 a month, and then they've been paying between $7,000 and $9,000 a month on top of that for Google and Facebook ads and SEO spend. but they've not been getting it's not been converting to sales. And so I've come in and I've identified the entire, I've reviewed and analysed the entire business and identified gaps and weaknesses and upgrades required. We call it a business overhaul. Mm-hmm. And they're paying $10,000 a month for us to come in and fix all of that stuff. So they get, for that price, they actually get the coaching, consulting, a couple of hours every week, plus email, phone support, etc. I'm running their management meetings. I'm running their HR processes. Or my team are doing all the marketing and website updates. We're doing some grants and procurement support for the business. And it's across each of those 3 different entities. So, for them, I'm actually telling their general managers what to do and how to do it. I'm giving them a to-do list every day to educate, enable, empower them on how they need to self-manage the growth of their business, rather than a marketing consultant or a coach coming in from the side and talking at them but not actually doing anything. Then the business owner is overwhelmed, overloaded, and go, I don't have the time to implement it, and I don't know who to go to fix that stuff, or they can't afford it, so they just come in and so we do that, and that's been pretty awesome as well.
That's a lot of work, Bettina. So how many people are in your team, like Complete Business Solutions and the business growth advisory services? How many people are in that team that allow you to do the amount of work that it sounds like you're doing?
Yeah, so we've got 13 in our team, plus 2 VAs over in the Philippines.
Right.
So, and our team are shared resources across the businesses, because we don't typically have enough grant or tender writing to employ somebody full time. So, in one business. So they might do a specialization in grant and tender writing as well as website updates or something like that. So they're shared resources. And then we have different contractors or subcontractors that we'll bring in as well for particular projects. And some of our projects are actual government projects. So we've got a current government project at the moment where we're interviewing director generals and executive directors within government departments around the internal communications structure and framework, and then building new frameworks on how the whole of government need to improve their communications within different departments. So we do some pretty higher level stuff, as well as the hands-on small business owner stuff.
Right. That's a lot to keep track of. How are you managing that workload, as the owner and founder, and still remaining grounded in who you are and, and what you want out of life, which is not only business?
Yeah, so work-life balance is super, super important. I practice it and I preach it, right? We, as I said, we have a software system company as well. And so we have custom built software systems to manage our job scheduling, our clients, all of our project work, etc. So a lot of that is automated. All of our client appointments and reminders to clients, our transcribed notes, all of that has been automated through the software system that we custom build, which we then on-sell to our clients. And, it's super important for me in the role that I play with my clients and their lives, because I'm not just a business coach or a business advisor. It's a very holistic approach I take. So I also do personal life coaching with them and counseling and, trauma counseling and all those sorts of things with my clients, because often they've got personal blockages. If I don't work on that stuff, whatever I do in the business advisory or business coaching space, they're going to move 2 steps forward and 5 steps back as soon as something personal triggers them. So I take that holistic approach and work on some of their stuff like coping strategies for marriage breakdowns, or, you know, there might be things around their financial situation or, you know, health situation. So I'll give them coping strategies and mechanisms for that, and then do stuff on the side with the business. And I myself make sure that usually every 3 weeks, I'm on a plane. I fly to Townsville. I see my daughter and my grandchildren. Even if I don't have clients there, it's a big expense, but I need that to fulfill the hole in my heart where my grandbabies are. And I make sure I go back to Cairns every few weeks, because that's where a large client base is for me, the same as remote communities and the islands. But then times like this afternoon, I'm taking the afternoon off to go and deliver. I'm actually giving my ex-husband one of my Mercedes convertibles. So I'm actually really excited to share. I manifested and achieved a goal within 8 months. I technically right now own 2 convertible Mercedes. And for me, that was something I never, ever thought possible. And so I'm actually gifting one of those to my ex-husband. So I'm taking the afternoon off to drive to his location, you know, with the roof off, and get some wind and sun in my hair and on my skin, and have that downtime for myself. And then weekends, I take time off. I make sure I socialize with my friends. I spend a lot of time with my fiance, and you know, we go out socializing and dancing and things like that.
Sounds like a very full life.
It is full, but it's very fulfilling. I absolutely love what I do for a living. I wake up every morning with passion and energy and love for life, because I have built my life to be what I've wanted it to be. And through all of the hardships I've endured, I've used those as the catalyst to drive me forward and want and achieve more and do more and see more and be more. And I've got big goals. But I've achieved everything that was on my bucket list 2 years ago. You know, so I'm doing a new bucket list. I put in my bio that I've had some great claims to fame that I never thought possible for a girl who's been brought up in the hardships I've endured as a child and the trauma, and then hardships in marriages and losing babies and major spine surgeries and going bankrupt and all those things. I've still, through self-determination and reaching out and collaborating with people and constantly being a sponge for knowledge and growth. Like I've just signed up to do a senior executive MBA, which includes studies overseas. And so when I'm about to go overseas to do studies, I'll actually form some business relationships over there so that I can make the most of those opportunities. But I've done some really cool stuff. I've been featured on Times Square billboard in New York City twice. I've been featured in Marie Claire magazine. I've been photographed with Duchess of York Sarah Ferguson and featured on her social media. I've been photographed and featured in 4 Australian Prime Ministers, right? I've been the legacy of the Sydney Olympic Games. I've empowered, something really exciting to share, right? This is where my passion comes out. A Torres Strait Islander lady, she lives on an island in the middle of Torres Strait, pitch black woman, right? And 6 years ago, the government paid her to do a 2-week program with me. It was called Indigenous Artist Hub Program. And she had an idea. So she makes art and sculptures, necklaces, etc. from fishing nets and nuts and seeds that she collects off the beach. And so she wanted to do a business. And so she came and did this 2-week intensive program with us where we actually help remote community, remote Indigenous people to actually start a little micro business, right?
Wow.
Doing something that they're good at and that they love. We teach them how to manage a little business. So we taught her how to establish this business, and it's called GhostNet Art. The government only paid us two weeks, and that was about 6-7 years ago, right? Now, I think it was 2019, 18, 19. Anyway, over the years, Nancy has still kept in touch with me. We built her a website. We still manage and host the website, don't charge her anything for it. She sends us updates. She's gone crazy with it. We helped her to establish all the plans and the grant application to build a little shop on her village. Now, her island only has 230 people, right? So it's really remote. Anyway, I'm proud to say that she is officially launching her brand new shop in her village on the Saturday, the 21st of February. And I'm so super proud because over the last couple of years, what Nancy has done is she's got a house that's 2 stories and underneath is just all concrete on stilts. And what she's done is she's set up sewing machines, right, a row of sewing machines, and she has 8 women from the community come in and use those sewing machines, and they make dresses and bags and face masks, and she has taught them how to create little micro businesses the same way we've taught her. So we've actually enabled many women in a very tiny little community to work towards economic impacts and financial independence, where it's an island where there aren't any jobs, right? And so these women are selling mugs and caps and little journal notes and journal diaries and things like that from what we've taught her to do. And now she's got this little shop space where she's doing a little coffee kiosk out of as well, because I said, well, when people are in your shop looking at your dresses and watching you make jewelry, they need to have a cup of coffee, and that's another way you can make extra money, because there's no coffee shop on the island. So it's kind of,
So everyone's like, where's my coffee?
Yeah, so that's just one of many success stories we have with our clients, and yeah, it's just amazing the things that we do, but it's second nature to us because all we're doing is educating and enabling people through sharing our knowledge and our expertise, and we're just treating them like real humans. Everything we do is one-to-one. There's no shelf product. It's all custom designed for each individual person based on their education or business acumen background, their particular logistical challenges or barriers to accessing resources or money or their family commitments, whatever it is. We just custom build something that works for them and teach them how to do it. Or even though the government only pays us for a couple of months or whatever, they reach out to us in the future and they go, hey, how do I do this? We're always there. We help them. We don't get paid for it, but for me, as long as somebody shows that they're determined to do business, I will continue to support them.
I love that. And it's those stories of impact in the communities those are the moments that you just warms your heart, right? Can we talk about, over the years, how you've led and how do I put this? How your understanding of leadership has evolved since you started that first business in 2024, and you've been through up mountains and down valleys, to get to where you are today. So how has your understanding of leadership evolved over that time?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question because I've been recognised as an Indigenous business leader, right, on a global scale, across many awards programs, including, awards in America and things like that. But I've also been recognised and acknowledged as an Indigenous business leader by many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia. And that is a unique thing because cultural politics often prevents those things happening. There's, people don't always respect somebody who claims to be a leader, unless you've done something for them or their wider community. And, for me, leadership has come from working hard and earning that respect. I earn the respect from government. I earn the respect from corporates. I give at least 15 to 20 hours every month pro bono through consulting to government, serving on government boards, helping or serving industry advisory groups, or providing pro bono mentoring for people who can't afford it, or to women of domestic family violence situations, including counselling and things like that. And so in Aboriginal culture and Torres Strait Islander culture, it's typically against culture to self-promote. It's seen as shame job. And whereas for me, what I do with my Indigenous clients is I educate them that it's really important to be able to tell your story, share your story, be open, share your wins and successes. Because if you don't self-promote, if you don't share your level of expertise and knowledge and what you do in leadership, your competitor will, and you will miss out on so many opportunities. So leadership from me has come from being recognised by awards, accolades, TV interviews, media articles, global recognition, but then also culturally through that respect and acknowledgement of elders and people in Indigenous communities. So, I can comfortably claim to be a business leader and an Indigenous business leader because that has come from many stakeholders, and I've got the credit and the being a trusted authoritarian to be able to make that claim. I've got that validation and verification behind me. Leadership isn't always about having a qualification. It's not always about having an award. It's deserving respect, and respect has to come from multiple stakeholders across different industries or community types in order for you to truly deserve and wear that badge to say that you're a leader. And there are many leaders that I still look up to. As I said, I invest a lot of time into personal and professional development, despite having a bunch of qualifications and a lot of knowledge and expertise. Every month I'm still studying and reading. I attend network events. I go to conferences, and I connect with global leaders in that space, and collaborate, learn, and then I impart that knowledge to my clients.
Nice. So would you say leadership it comes from external rather than internal mechanisms?
I believe yes, but to be a good leader, you have to also have self-esteem, confidence, assertiveness. So, an example of that for me is there are many women leaders, women coaches, empowerment people who talk about gender equality and pay equality. For me, in my National Women's Empowerment Group, I don't discuss those topics because for me, as a woman, I have always stood my ground and said, I am worth this much. I will stand here as a confident, assertive woman. I will charge you this much money because I believe I'm worth this value. But then I have to follow through with those goods or services to verify, validate, and deserve, that recognition and that validation. So I believe in gender equality and pay equality, but it's not a topic that I speak to because I lead by example, and I don't look at, I'll always work in male-dominated industries, and I love it. And I go into a boardroom and I own it. I'll dress the part in a corporate suit, and I'll shake their hands with a firm handshake. And, it's taken me a long time to get there. And I had to learn the correct techniques to do all of these things, and learn from, global leaders in communications and body language like Alan Pease, who I still stalk some 30 years on. But I had to learn how to wear that with pride and stand strong on my own 2 feet and say, I'm a business leader.
Nice. That might lead really nicely into our last question. So the last question on every podcast is always a question that has been left by a previous guest. And it's one way that I like to thread the conversations together. And the last question is never shared with the guest until we get to this point in the podcast. So every answer from everyone that's been on the podcast is always their truest answer, because it will come in the moment, as opposed to something that is shared ahead of time and has a curated answer. So I think this one here is really good in terms of maybe being for you. The universe has said to the previous, guest, this is for the next guest, not even knowing.
Yeah.
So the question for you is, how do you navigate the external expectations placed upon you, especially as a woman?
I always ensure that I'm extremely open, transparent, and upfront when somebody shares with me what their expectations are going to be. I'm extremely honest on the spot of saying, yes, I can do that, but this is how it needs to work, or I can't do that because. And an example of that is we get a lot of work from government, and typically government will try to dictate to me or try and lead and drive me on how they want things done. And so I will say to them very directly in the first meeting, you have engaged me as the expert, and I need to do things my way, because that's the only way that I know I'm going to be able to deliver on the results. If I don't, I'm happy to work with you and have weekly meetings and reporting, but I need to do things my way. Is that going to be okay? And as long as we set those boundaries and parameters up front, and even along the way throughout a project with any client, it's really important. So I also do things like mid-project and end-of-project surveys with every client, and it's in writing, and it's really good to get that 360-degree feedback on whether or not I've been able to deliver. And halfway through the project, if I'm not meeting their expectations and they're being honest in that survey, I have an opportunity then to work with that client and go, okay, how am I not meeting your expectations? Let's change things.
Love that approach, and that you are ensuring the expectation is clear, and then deciding if you can meet it or it needs to be renegotiated. So the expectation, you aren't just taking it on board and then going and making sure you meet it. The expectations are negotiated.
Yeah, and I was meeting with a potential new client yesterday, and at the end of the conversation, I said to her, the last thing I need to say to you is that I'm mean. I said, I'm your accountability and implementation partner, but 3 strikes and you're out. I said, I will sack my clients if they turn up late 3 times or cancel 3 times. I said, if you turn up late for a meeting, you need to do 1 star jump for every minute you're late. And she laughed. And I said, the end thing is, I said, I don't want you to waste your money or my time by not taking this seriously. You've asked for my help. You're going to pay me for my help, but I'm like a doctor. You need to turn up on time, and we work through this together to help improve your quality of life. Otherwise, this arrangement won't work.
Clear expectations.
Yeah.
Clear expectations. Beautiful. That's a lovely thing. Bettina, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your story with all the ups and downs, the highs and lows. It has been a journey, and my mind was, just boggling in terms of comprehending and taking on board the journey that you've been through. Because it sounds like really energy draining for someone like me who is, very much an introvert, and, my energy I need to protect. And listening to your story, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds exhausting and overwhelming all at the same time. But, for someone like yourself, it sounds like those challenges just makes you rise to the occasion even more, just makes you even more determined, which I really enjoyed the conversation, because this really demonstrates how different we all are. We can all be successful once we understand who we are and how we operate, which you reflected beautifully in that last answer to that question. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, sharing your story, and all the best with your launch in New Zealand in April.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
Be really, really good.
Yeah. Well, my new husband to be is Maori, so it'll be really good for us to be able to go, because up until the end of last year he hadn't been home for 13 years, and so now with starting this business together, he'll be able to return home on a regular basis to see his extended family.
That's beautiful. Love that. Very whānau orientated by the sounds of it.
Yeah, we both are. Yeah.
Well, we'll keep in touch. I'd love to know, when that's launching, and how you go here in Aotearoa.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sandra, for the opportunity.
You're
really
welcome.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening to Wahine. If today's kōrero resonated with you, inspired you, or made you stop and think, I'd love for you to follow the show and share it with another wahine in business. You'll find all of the links and details from this episode in the show notes. So until next time, keep building your business your way, grounded in who you are and the legacy you're here to create. The podcast music is Te Kawa o Rongo by Ngāneko Eriwata. The episode is edited by LJS Creative Services, and the show notes and blog post are written by Bellbird Writing.